Hi, Ed.
Good morning. Excellent. We are now actually at time. I just missed that going by, so just need to wait a couple of minutes for folks to turn up. And meanwhile, I will go ahead and get the project out. Ah, there's Frederick. And there's Andre.
Hey.
Hey.
I've joined it with some other URL and just be alone.
Yeah, I might have done that once or twice myself. So, it is a very lonely experience, I will admit. So, all right. So let's go ahead and get going then. Anything before we start walking through the project board?
Nothing really important, I think.
Okay, let me go ahead and share the project board then. So, all right. Reviews in progress. So the interdomain chain elements, I think a lot of these are done.
Yes, here we have completed all chain elements for registry. And now we need to do only chain element for proxy manager.
Okay, fantastic. Do we have a separate issue for that?
Yes, I'll create an issue after the meeting.
Cool. Excellent. So that's good news. The cross-connect chain element, I saw this go by this morning. I was very excited. I haven't had a chance to fully review it yet, but I was very excited.
Yeah, only one thing is left. It's a question with IDs for connection. Right now, the set ID chain element is not working properly when you do a second request for the same network service with same connection ID from a client. It will regenerate new connection IDs.
That's definitely wrong.
Yeah.
So interestingly, I think if I recall vaguely the logic of the set ID, if you came in with an ID already set, and it matched the ID that we had on the path for the next path element, which was for us, then we would leave it alone.
No, I think at the moment it checks for the name of the current chain element and match the ID of the current chain element or current path element with a connection ID. If it's different, it will generate random identifier.
Because I think basically, if I recall correctly, so right at this point, everybody is generating a connection ID. The client generates one, the server generates one on its end, et cetera. And so the good news is that it's logically fairly localized. So let's definitely take a look at that. I remember at one point having put a lot of thought into it. That doesn't mean that I'm right, or I was right when I did it, or even that it's a good idea. But effectively, what we want to make sure we do is recognize the case when the request that we get is a request for it was a request that we've already serviced before.
Yeah.
So, okay, but yeah, we definitely want to be doing that.
So I have some initial fix for it in my local pull request, but at the moment I'm looking into update path chain elements as well, because when I fix it set ID, I have some duplicate path segments added. Not find yet why.
Oh, okay. So I mean, I know that the way that there was a little bit of sleight of hand in the update path chain element, where essentially it didn't seem like it didn't seem necessary to me to have two path elements for the same thing that happened to be both an endpoint and a client. So like the network service manager, it seemed like it was quite reasonable to let that be a single path element. And so the logic of the path element was probably done with some eye towards the logic in the set ID to make sure that that didn't happen. So if you've changed the set ID, then it's probably, as you said, jiggered a little bit with what's going on in the update path element. And if nothing else, even in the case that, even if it happens to be true that they're actually correct as written, they clearly are under-documented.
Yep.
So let's definitely take a look at that after these meetings. Because there's clearly more subtlety there that isn't very clear to the next reader, and it's also possible they're wrong, right? That also happens. So okay, but that's actually good. But again, the nice thing is that's super localized in space, so it's easy to talk about. I'm a huge fan these days of localization. All right. Cool. So that the cross-connect chain elements in need of review. That's good. So the add registry resolve chain elements to resolve path domain to client URL. This is done. Okay. Cool. Awesome. So on to in progress. So client and endpoint of the same cluster node fails. This is the interdomain issue. I think Terra96 got back to you on this, if I recall.
Oh, yep, it is a new issue related to interdomain from monorepo. I'll take a look at this problem this
Many
week.
thanks. Cool. Awesome. All right. Add registry interdomain unit tests.
Oh, I have provided PR with unit tests for interdomain registry cases. So please take a look.
Will do. So this is actually in review in progress then.
Yep.
Cool. So the interdomain add registry swap chain element. This is
it is done.
Okay. Cool. The network service manager application and testing. I presume this is still underway with the other things you've been doing. Andre?
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's Ekaterina's doing.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. NSM manager. Yeah, has some stuff internally, it's not fully merged. So probably need to add a bit of more stuff.
Okay. All right, so update registry, next package with the latest patch for network service next.
This is still in progress.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Registry connect chain elements for interdomain.
Oh, it is done. PR has been merged.
Cool, that's what I thought. So adapter ignores context from adapted server and client.
I think it's also in progress, yeah? Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And that sort of gets down to an interesting subtle question. And I think there was some conversation there as well about sort of how it had been done and what we may want to do. All right. All right then. Advanced OPA policies, we're still waiting to actually see these in action, but we're well on our way. Create exclude prefixes service. I saw a PR go by for this. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so this is actually review in progress. I think I sort of looked at it and went, why are we pulling in Viper? Oh wait, that's why we're pulling in Viper. So
yeah.
Cool.
Also, it was idea probably will create an issue and do it as improvement. It's to reuse, if it's possible, the bitmap maps. Frederick used it for some IP EPAM.
That would be potentially, so that's interesting. Do you have thoughts on that, Frederick? Do we still have Frederick on the call?
Yeah, I think we have. Frederick?
Yeah, I'm here. I was on mute. Yeah, so what do we want to use it for specifically?
Yeah, at the moment, we have a prefix pool implementation, which is based on strings, and we have handmade algorithm to include and exclude some of subnets. And probably it could be a good idea to use a bitmap stuff you use for, I think, EPAM chain elements.
Yeah, I mean, it's the primary thing with that is as long as you can convert whatever it is to a bitmap, I don't see a reason why that would be an issue. It's a relatively simple API. It does not do anything with persistence, so it's purely whatever current state that you have, although you can serialize it. Yeah, it's pretty it's pretty efficient in what it does. So if you have a use for it, definitely feel free to use it in other places.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is that the dynamicity of exclude prefixes is a little bit lower, hopefully, than what we see for the existing stuff. Okay. So add registry chain element to proxy registration, unregistration to next registry.
Oh, this is done?
That's what I thought. I could have sworn I'd seen that go by and possibly even been the one who merged it. The command forwarder BPP agent. So this is working right now kernel to kernel, although there's an update that I need to go take a look at that came from BPP agent that seems to have broken it. So I need to find out why. Probably propagated from before that point. The thing I'm working on right now is bringing a little bit of sanity to the MEMIF stuff. So we can do testing MEMIF to MEMIF. One of the things I've actually succeeded in doing is I now have a very simple gRPC service that you can use over Unix domain sockets to request particular files. And so basically, right now with MEMIF, we basically say we're using a shared mount directory, and that has certain kinds of costs to it. But I think what I've got on hand will allow us to simply, if you could imagine the network service endpoint wants to do MEMIF, and so it passes back something that says, yeah, okay, I've got MEMIF, and the URL for reaching it is inode:/dev/inode number, and then we could just turn around and request that of it and get it back over the Unix file socket, so we wouldn't have to do shared memory, shared directory structures, which would do away with the last need for the device plugin.
So explain a bit more how maybe you'll request it. Is it will be an admission webhook like, or device plugin?
No. So this gets us entirely out of the device plugin game. So effectively, what it comes down to is I've got in hand a small gRPC service that if you run it on a Unix file socket, and someone turns to you and requests something and says, hey, I'd like this inode, and you are willing to give it that inode, you can return that inode over the Unix file socket, the actual open file itself. And the result is that you could imagine something where, okay, we've told the VPP agent to go and we've basically in the VPP agent side, we said, okay, great, create a MIF, you're the master, here's the name of the file I want it to be. So you say, okay, great, we got that. So you could literally open the file and pass the file back to over the socket. Which is very handy. It gets us away from the directory problem entirely.
Yeah.
I'm
very interested to see in the code.
Yeah, no, I literally, there were a number of like small annoying bits in there. And I'm still sort of scratching my head deciding what to do there about security, in terms of like how to tell the server which things it should pass back and what. I'm actually tempted to have the identifiers be sort of opaque instead of specifying the inodes per se. Are you guys familiar with how inodes work in Linux and other POSIX operating systems?
A bit of, actually.
Okay. So basically, every single thing in Unix is a file, everything. And each of those files is uniquely specified by a device ID, which is a uint64, and an inode, which is a uint64. And that tuple taken together is such that every file, whether it's mounted in the file system or not, every network namespace, every listening socket, every socket connection, everything has got a tuple of that form. And they're all, when they're in part of your process, they're all represented by a file descriptor, which is a single int. But the file descriptor is just a localized handle. The inode and the device are globalized notions. And so it turns out that with Unix file sockets, you can actually send those across the Unix file socket. You can send an open file descriptor across the Unix file socket, which means it arrives in the process that you sent it to as a potentially different file descriptor, but pointing to the same inode. Does that make sense? It's insanely powerful. But yeah, that way, and this is similar, I mean, MIF uses a similar sort of trick. But we're basically looking at using this to, I'm looking at using this to get rid of the mount directory where we have to share mounts to actual files that are linked in the file system. And instead, you can just pass it across the socket. Make sense?
Yeah.
So, and it turns out that getting a gRPC service for it going was a little bit interesting because there are some weird, tricky corners, but I've resolved those so far. But anyway, that's been the fun thing that's been occupying a lot of my attention lately, is getting that going. But you can sort of see where that makes life better because now we don't have to do any games with the device plugins. Okay. All right. VPP WireGuard plugin. Artem, how is this going?
The last week I worked on VPP agent, made a southbound connection using binary API between agent and WireGuard plugin. And currently I'm working on northbound API using protobufs. Almost made the API for device configuration. Device mean WireGuard device in WireGuard plugin. And now I'm trying to run it on custom VPP agent Docker image. And the next step is peer configuration, but when I configure the device, I think it will be simple.
Excellent. Excellent. And do we have any progress on finding versions of the libraries around the licensing issues?
There is no answer from them. And I think that after VPP agent, I will rework the plugin for BSD
okay.
using that they have.
Cool. All right. Excellent. Excellent. Good. All right then. Anything else in the VPP WireGuard plugin?
No, I think that's all.
Cool. So I did see, by the way, there's a little bit more progress on the kernel forwarder. I saw a patch that landed, I think, from Sergey this week. That was a PR out there for adding some chain elements to the kernel SDK kernel repo. Do we have him on the call? I don't think so.
I don't see. Yeah, what I've seen today, it's a chain element to kernel, SDK kernel, about moving interface from one Unix namespace to another, and some chain elements to the SRIOV forwarder for kernel. And Sergey has some internal stuff he's working on to add support for with IO chain elements.
Cool. Excellent. All right, so that's good news. And then I've seen the SRIOV stuff continue to move forward. I also put Sergey in touch with Radoslav because Radoslav is hoping to do a talk on SRIOV or Service Mesh for NSMCon, and I know Sergey's been doing a lot of the work on that, so we'll definitely try and get those two talking. You've talked about the VPP agent stuff, add support for cross-connect endpoints, we talked about. Simple indexed round robin algorithm. I saw this and was super interested. What's going on with this?
Denise? I think I missed it.
Oh, as I know, Valery has provided PR for SDK tools PKG with implementation of round robin algorithm, and it is under review, but I think we need to probably some rework this thing. But anyway, I think round robin algorithm for SDK is a good idea.
Yeah, there are lots of places where it's likely to end up being useful. So
oh, yep.
I think that's probably good. Okay, cool. All right. So the stop refresh and another request. That's still an ongoing issue, even after the rewrite of refresh. Or even after the bug fix that all the bug fixes we've done, that's still going on?
Yes, I faced it with some fails related to this test. I have applied some links to CI.
So is it a it's a condition never satisfied? Yeah. We should really figure out what's going on there. It is definitely vexing me. Okay. All right then. The heal stuff. There was some instability in the heal tests.
Yep, we've seen this a few times. Not yet working on it.
Do we have a notion of what the symptom is? Because unfortunately, the links to particular runs don't seem to be working. So I went to go try and take a look at what was going on, and there were these marvelous links pointing to the runs.
No, some
I guess at least we have
conditional.
the point,
yeah,
at least we have the point at which the conditions are never satisfied, so we can go take a look.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to suspect that there may be something wonky. The condition never satisfied is around a particular kind of assertion in Testify. I'm beginning to wonder if that assertion has some instability in itself, but we can definitely go take a look. All right. And then parallel dial. We're also seeing issues again with parallel dial being wonky, because I thought I killed this one dead.
I've not seen.
Okay.
But Denise, did you create this issue?
Yes.
We have a good clean link to the action. which is fantastic. Okay, so it looks like it's happening on test windows, and the symptom that we're seeing is Go routine leaks. I wonder if it's possible that we need to actually force a garbage collection there.
Oh, probably yes. I have did similar fix for registry connect chain elements, and this fixes the problem for registry connect.
Yeah, I think that may be needed for test parallel dial. And the reason is because if I recall correctly, when I rewrote heal, a whole lot of the logic behind rewriting heal was the fact that 99.999% of the time you win and 0.001% of the time you lose. And so I have things operating such that if you win, then you go through the fast path, which is very, very fast. And if you lose, then the slow path is not particularly slow, but it involves a whole lot of sort of protect yourself from things going wrong so the world ends up being okay. And I seem to recall that one of those was setting a finalizer on something so that, you know, basically it would get properly reaped when it got dereferenced at the end of everything. And if you've not called the garbage collector, you definitely haven't reaped it correctly. So it may be that it just needs a garbage collection call in the test. Which sort of brings us around to the go leak in each test to avoid avoid leaks. Oh yeah, totally. The other thing I would actually suggest that would be interesting is, I'm kind of curious if there's a similar sort of test for leaking file descriptors, but that's a lower priority item. Okay. And then we've got this question that you've opened, Denise, on where to put images for this stuff. And I know you and I have been having a bit of a conversation. It's probably good to, oh my goodness, we're against time here. We may have to take this to the broader Slack channel, the conversation about where to put packages, or I can add it to the community discussion as well. But we do need to go dash for the next meeting so that it gets started on time.
Oh, okay, fine.
All right, awesome. Talk to you guys there.